Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode number 94.
94.
What's up? I'm Gabe Jones.
I'm Josiah Jones.
This is a show by the fans.
For the fans.
We are on location at the Guireshire, here in the basement of the Guireshire.
Yeah, we're hiding out. There's a birthday party going on all around us. And so if it doesn't sound like it normally does, it's because it's not how we normally do it.
We are busy this weekend with all kinds of shows, so we had to improvise and record in a different location, but that's fine.
Yeah, I am just about to leave and go to an August Burns Red concert. We saw, who did we see last night?
Toby something.
Toby, was it McGuire?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
Anyway, we got John Van Deusen on the show today. John Van Deusen has a album called I Am Origami Part 3. It just released this year. It's probably my favorite album of the year.
I need to listen to parts 1 and 2 as well. He's new to me. I have not.
He's new to me as well. To be honest, that was probably my first interaction with him. Was that album? So I have had a chance to go back and listen. Not as much as I probably should, but Part 3 has really taken a lot of my time lately. So I'm very excited to share that interview with you guys. But before we head into that, we need to talk about our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. For as low as $1 a month, you can join our team and you can help fund our show. It keeps the lights on, it keeps us going, and with your help, that is very helpful.
Yeah, well said there, buddy.
Yeah. So, for some of you that are new, for as low as $1 a month, you can join our team. For $5 a month, you can get our bonus episodes. This week, we are talking about our throwback album of the week, which is Family Force 5's Dance or Die. And we're also going to talk about Dance or Die with a Vengeance. Both albums came out about a little over 10 years ago.
Is that your favorite Family Force 5 album?
I think it is. It is.
It's up there with me.
Yeah, I know a lot of people will debate whether their debut was the best, but Dance or Die for me was probably my favorite. But we'll talk more about that in our bonus episode. And of course, for $10 a month, you can join our music club where you can get physical music delivered to your door. How about that?
Physical music.
So yes, what a deal. But you can do that at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. So we're going to head into an interview with John Van Deusen. John is a guy that lives in Seattle. There's a lot of great artists in Seattle. There's King's Kaleidoscope. There's Citizens and Saints. I know Thrice is not from there. They're from California, but they have some roots in Seattle as well.
There's a big music scene up there.
Yeah.
Emery and Demon Hunter and all those guys.
Oh yeah. That was arguably the birthplace of grunge back in the early 90s. So
it's West Coast Nashville.
Yeah, so there's definitely some elements of that in this music. If you haven't listened to this album, I Am Origami Part 3, you should listen to that before you head into the interview because it's outstanding. It is my favorite album of the year. It is something that I would have listened to in high school. It is that same kind of alternative 90s rock that I loved growing up, and it's something that you would love if you loved the same genre.
You would have listened on your portable CD player while mowing the lawn.
The portable CD player with the extension of that tape player that they sold you at Walmart.
Oh yeah.
That went bad after
the adapter.
6 months. Yes, and when
jamming out to some I Am Origami Part 3.
Yeah, a lot of Walkman batteries would have been wasted on this. So without further ado, here is our interview with John Van Deusen.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
I just wanted to have you on because I absolutely dig your new album that you just put out. It's called I Am Origami Part 3, but I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on kind of what headed into this, because I know you had Part 1 and Part 2. What do these projects mean to you? What do they mean?
Well, it's an album series. Originally, I thought I'd do 4. I think I'm going to end up doing 5. And you know, I played in an indie rock band for about 10 years called The Lonely Forest. We stopped playing in 2014, and I had a lot of songs that I needed to release, or at least I wanted to release, and I kind of dreamt up this idea of releasing them in a series. And so I thought up the title I Am Origami because it kind of reflected my desire to shape-shift a little bit, but kind of maintain a sense of self, you know, being the same substance, but being shaped into these different creatures, different characters. And that's why the album series seemed appropriate, because I knew that I was going to be releasing records that varied quite a bit in sound and theme. And I very purposefully released Part 3 right after the record that I released as Part 2, which was kind of a collection of hymns and prayers, and I just felt like it was really appropriate and needed, maybe in this current climate, this current spiritual, political climate, to kind of marry the two, you know, secular, sacred, have a release following I guess some people call it a worship record, but follow it up with something that reflected my anger and my doubt and my depression. It just felt appropriate. So I hope that kind of, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess getting into the album itself, before we actually head into it, what was the process of actually getting signed to Tooth and Nail for this release?
It was pretty simple, actually. I played a show in Seattle with a friend of mine named Tyson Mossenbacher, and he's a Tooth and Nail artist, and I asked him how it was going with the label, and he said it was going well, and he really enjoyed working with them, that they were, you know, an independent label again, which is really cool. And after the show, we had a phone conversation, and he asked me what I was doing, and I just kind of said I was preparing to self-release more music, and that it kind of been on my mind that maybe Tooth and Nail would want to release it. And he said, well, that makes sense. And so basically I just sent them the record, and that was that. They had reached out to my previous band in probably 2010 or 2009, and we decided to sign with a different label. So I was already kind of on their radar, and it helps also that they're a Seattle label, and that I've been an artist in the Seattle scene for a while, since 2006. So it's exciting that an artist like you is on that label, especially right now. With this release, it's probably one of the more, weirdly to say this about Tooth and Nail, it's one of the more alternative releases of the last few years. So that's cool to hear. So this genre that you kind of decided upon is, I mean, it's not the most aggressive thing that you've done as an artist, but maybe as a solo artist, it seems like it is. Why did you decide to go with that kind of alternative, not really grunge, but more of a, I guess, more of a aggressive music when it came to this album? I think as I was writing the songs and demoing them, they just kind of naturally came out a bit louder. And I really wanted to write and record a record that I would have enjoyed as a 9th or 10th grader. It was kind it was kind of like this, it was kind of my goal, at least sonically and stylistically. I wanted it to feel like something I would have enjoyed when I was 14. And when I was a early teenager, I really loved 90s radio rock. And so I think I was kind of aiming for early Weezer, early Foo Fighters, Sunny Day Real Estate, Built to Spill, and even maybe even some of the more almost borderline one-hit wonder bands from that era, like Semisonic, Closing Time, and even like Everclear, and bands that I don't know today if I'd call them cool per se, but that they just wrote really, really good radio rock songs. And so I really wanted it to kind of feel like it had come out in the like mid to late 90s. I also think because I wanted to express some of my frustration and a little bit of my anger, sadness, isolation. It just felt like I needed it to be loud.
My wife thought that I was listening to Jimmy Eat World the first time I was listening to it. So.
That's a great touchstone.
Yeah.
That's a Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American, sorry. That definitely was a touchstone for me.
Yeah.
On this record.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned like high school, because a lot of these songs, like, I could have used in high school. Like, there's a lot of songs about just kind of social construction and, just kind of, I don't know, I guess expectations socially, and what people expect from you that is, I could have used in high school. I could still definitely use it now. Why did you decide to kind of go upon that? And I know you talked a lot about anxiety and depression before, but why did you decide to write about that at this point in your life?
That's a good question. I think I know that people, if they do a little research on me, they know that I'm a believer in Christ. And so I know that a lot of the young people finding my music will inevitably be existing within church, raised in a Christian home, or at least at one point in their lives were living and existing within Christian culture. And I just think a lot of teenagers who exist within that bubble don't feel the freedom to express their anger and their anxiety or their depression. I think a lot of them feel alone in those emotions, and maybe maybe they feel as if nobody would understand them if they were to start expressing their doubts, or to say things like, I really just don't want to go to church for a whole myriad of reasons. I just don't want to go. And I think, some teenagers do say that, but I also think a lot of them don't, because they want to, they don't want to rock the boat, or they're told that doubting is sinful, or whatever it is, just et cetera, et cetera. And I think I really wanted, as an open Christian, I really wanted to express these emotions, even though I'm 31. It's been a while since I've been in high school, but I knew that signing to Tooth and Nail especially would inevitably some younger people might find the music, and I just felt like maybe it'd be liberating for some people. And it's honestly been really cool, because I've had some people write me and say that to me. Say things like, I didn't feel comfortable expressing this anger, or maybe even things like, I didn't know I was angry until I heard your record.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. I'm really glad that that when you hear it, you think, I could have used this in high school, because honestly, that's exactly what I was feeling when I wrote it.
Right, because I remember when I was 16 or so, the questions started like, where do you want to go to school? What do you want to do with your life? And like, I'm 32 right now, and I'm still trying to figure that out, And
right.
And it's like, even from that point and I was so immature at that point, you're expected to know these things, and the social constructs, especially in the American church, where as soon as you can think about it, they're already trying to push like getting married and all that on you, especially when you're not ready for that. Did you experience that in your own life, or did you, like, what was that experience for you growing up?
The truth is, my parents, my family was always pretty relaxed and, dare I say, progressive in some ways. You know, I chose in ninth grade to go to a different church, and my parents were okay with that. They would drop me off and then go to their church because I liked the music, and there were younger people at this other church. And my parents were always super supportive of anything alternative if it seemed like it was healthy for me. And so I never really got the pressure of, you know, where are you going to go to school, when are you going to get married. I think in many ways I existed in a kind of fringe, like on the outer edges of Christian culture is probably the best way to describe my experience. And I left Christianity. I mean, I left the church, I left my faith at a younger age, and didn't return until a few years later. And so I don't think I experienced it like many others have, but I volunteered at youth groups, and I was meeting a lot of teenagers who would come to my shows, and I think that's when I began to maybe ponder the way in which the church puts really heavy expectations, to use the word that the song sings over and over again, and pressure, you know, to be and to live a certain way. So thank God I didn't really experience it myself. So
That's
it feels like I experienced it some maybe later in life. You know, as I walked away from the church, and maybe even more adult questions. You know, some of the words in those, some of the lines in that song specifically, I think you're referring to. You don't know what you're asking, but I say things like, you know, when are you going to have children of your own? When are you going to buy a place of your own? When are you going to start showing up at church? Well, growing up in a small town, everybody knows your business, and people just kind of ask questions from a place of ignorance, but they're often loaded questions anyways. And so I experienced that maybe in my mid to late 20s, not in my teens.
A lot of times those are really surfacey questions, like they don't expect you to like get into really talking about it, and I don't know, they don't expect you to go in depth, I guess. That's one song that came to mind. There was another song called "Social Sucker" that really stuck out to me. It kind of reminds me of kind of the culture that we live in with social media. What was the thoughts behind that song?
I mean, really, social media was kind of the anxiety I feel due to social media and its just prevalence and its pervasive nature in our society definitely informed the lyrics for that song and just the feel of it in general. In this song, you know, I'm referring to a friend who's maybe getting caught up in the superficial nature of social media and just that general like social ladder climbing. And the Seattle scene of music specifically, in some cases it feels super healthy, and in other cases it just feels so fake. And people play nice, but behind it is kind of this leech mentality. And so that's kind of what inspired that song. And you know, actually, interestingly enough, the original lyrics I used the F word. And I just felt like obviously more people would hear it and connect with it if I just stuck to the leech metaphor with the social sucker. So
Well, now people will be looking for the explicit version.
It won't be. It's not out there. It doesn't exist.
You could probably charge money for that.
No, I would feel so guilty. I'd feel awful for that.
I'm just playing. So my wife showed me the video for Whatever Makes You Mine just recently, and it's can you explain that, because it's pretty out there.
Well, the director and I had been discussing. We'd been talking about writing and filming a short film. And I'd been wanting to write, and actually had been working on this kind of surrealistic, borderline psychedelic horror movie, for lack of a better term. Not traditional horror, but something just very out there, very strange. And we decided maybe we would just instead of doing that first, we would try a music video first. And in my original idea for the film, this main character, and it's written after one of my own experiences that I had when I was staying alone at a lodge in the Cascade Mountains. But in that original treatment for this short film, I'm stalked, for lack of a better term. I'm watched by this creature that follows me around this lodge, and I don't know that it's there. And it is much scarier and intense than what the music video ended up being. But we felt like we still liked the idea of having this watcher, this kind of creature watching me. And then the record itself, it plays on this idea of just the duality of character, this idea that there's this tension between the two selves. And that plays really well into the general theme of the album series. And so I love this kind of concept of this creature watching me, and then eventually the creature takes off this mask, and it's me. It's like my other self watching myself. And at the end we kind of make peace with one another. That's probably the best way for me to describe it. It doesn't really have a lot of meaning. It's just I just wanted something that was visually appealing and unsettling in general. And some of that has to do with, knowing that some people will call me a Christian artist. I think I want to make aesthetic decisions and artistic decisions that seem and that are risky in general, because I think, in general, I think Christian artists don't take enough risks. So that's me just kind of very purposefully saying, I'm going to do something that is maybe a little uncomfortable or a little unsettling, or maybe is just atypical to what you'd expect from a Christian rock artist. So
awesome. And that's why I think that video stuck out to me, because it's unlike anything I've really seen, especially from a Christian artist. Another song that is not really something you probably hear from a Christian artist is, I think it's a song that you have had for a while, because I've seen live performances from it. It's a song called Fly Away to Hell.
Yes.
And that's just another song that, man, it just... If I was in high school and I heard that song, I could just remember, I could just probably play that CD till it stopped working. That's
awesome. Thank you.
What's the thinking behind that song? It just reminds me kind of the anxieties that I went through in high school and that experience. But what does that song mean to you?
The song means a lot to me. I actually wrote it while I was writing and recording the worship record that I released, and it just kind of came out of me, and I wrote it and recorded it in about half an hour. And I had been pondering the ways in which the church, like the global church, historically, and the contemporary church, have alienated and ostracized entire groups of people out of fear or broken theology or for whatever reason, and I was thinking about my friends who fall into those categories. And when I was writing and recording that second record, I was staying in a really beautiful place. I was at a writer's retreat on, was it the Wenatchee River or the Yakima River? I can't even remember which river, but it was just nestled up against the mountains in eastern Washington. It was very beautiful. I was there for 2 weeks, and I was spending time watching birds, land in the garden and fly away, watching snakes come in and out of the garden. I was spending time in the garden a lot and reading, and I was just pondering how in the natural world there's such beauty, and it's so simple yet so profound. And I guess I felt like writing this little note to my friends who either don't believe in God or who do but don't feel welcome in church, or maybe are spiritual but it's not as defined. And I just felt like writing them a note and say, when you feel like you don't belong, and especially in church, the place where you're supposed to, it's supposed to be a home for you. It's supposed to be a refuge for all people. when you feel like you don't belong, I just want you to remember these simple, profound truths, like how beautiful it is when a rabbit runs away, or, you know, when a sparrow flies past, or whatever it is. And the Fly Away to Hell reference, that lyric, it just felt like a good, it was like my way of saying sometimes you just kind of want to end it all. Sometimes you just kind of want to put up your middle finger and just be like, I'm done. And I think when you're not a believer in Christ, or when you're not religious, if you don't believe in an afterlife, if you commit suicide, you know, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what's going on. But if you were talking to a Christian, and out of anger you might say, sometimes I just want to go to hell. Sometimes I just want to, like, just to spite you. And I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of hard for me to articulate it, but that was the feeling behind it. Sometimes you just want to go to the worst place imaginable. So that's kind of the heart of the song, and it really means a lot to me. Honestly, it's one of the more important songs in the record to me. So
even as I listen to it, a lot of times when people say that, the thing that kind of sticks with me is, especially in some of the experiences that I've had dealing with, like, kids and really bad situations, sometimes they look at hell and they would think that that's actually an upgrade over the situation that they're in now, and so even flying away to hell would be an upgrade compared to what they're going through. So yeah, I mean, those words were just powerful to me, and I just, that song really stuck out to me, and I love it to death. But
thank you.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, I know there's another band in the Seattle area called King's Kaleidoscope, and they put out an album called Zeal a few months ago, and I said that album would be tough to beat this year, but I think you beat it with this album. And
thank you.
But I just wanted to say thank you, and if anyone hasn't heard this album, what would you tell them? Give them a reason to listen to it.
I don't know. I guess I would say that I listen to it loud, and listen to it on a day when you just want to feel something. I think, you know, not everybody's going to connect with it emotionally, but if you like rock music, I think putting it on and letting your emotions kind of open up to the energy of the record, that's what I would encourage people to do. And yeah, I would hope that they would feel something when they hear it. So
yeah, man, this is an album that I would have gotten in my 1988 Subaru in high school and just rolled the windows down and screamed every word of this. So
dude, Gabe, thank you. That really means a lot to me.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this, and I appreciate your time. And again, I love this album, and thanks for putting it out, man.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care, buddy. That was our interview with John Van Deusen. I'd like to thank John for hanging out with us. And
with us, he was just with you.
Well, I guess it was
you
just
didn't
with
invite me.
I'm sorry. It was a fun conversation. We talked a lot about, he mentioned this was an album that he would have like, a lot of these issues were something that he dealt with in high school. So it was an album he wanted to make that would have reflected his time in high school, which he and I are about the same age, so I think that's why it resonated with me so much as well. We'll talk more about that in the bonus episode.
Ooh.
You don't want to miss that. Again, that's at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. We are also on Twitter, DC Talk Act 2. We're on Instagram, DC Talk Podcast. we have a website, decentchristiantalk.com, and if you don't like doing the monthly pledge things, there's a place on there where you can donate one time with your PayPal account, and lots of people have done that as well, and we would just greatly thank those people as well.
Yeah, well said there, buddy.
Yeah, we also have a Facebook page, Decent Christian Talk, and a Decent Christian Talk discussion page. And once again, we are on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio now.
What's iTunes?
I'm sorry, Apple Podcast. I'm going to say that till I die, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could probably get us on LimeWire as well.
And Napster.
Yes.
Before we head off in the sunset, I would like to thank Maria, Lorena, Hunter.
Ooh, new guy.
Yeah, how about that? Michael, and Leslie, and Jody for sponsoring our show. And if you would like to be added to that list, again, patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. But we're going to head off in the sunset.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.